Welcome everyone to another Wednesday night, the fundamentals to gain inner peace with your host, Coach Menachem. Baruch Hashem, we are up to class number 66, and all the recordings are available. You can go to menachembernfeld.com to hop on the train of the journey, come on the journey with us if you're new. And you can start from the beginning and join us every Wednesday night. So tonight, we have first before we start, we have our special sponsor, okclarity.com is the place for any Jew to find a top-notch therapist, coach, or nutritionist. okclarity.com's professionals are vetted and have extensive experience working with the Jewish community. And yes, you can find me there. If you're in the market looking for a therapist or anything to help you out, or if you are a wellness professional looking to get more online exposure, go check it out. They also have an amazing WhatsApp status with thousands of followers and free content. Join them. The number is 917-426-1495. That's 917-426-1495. And I'll put the links in the email or in the description, wherever you're watching this. Okay, so the past few weeks, we were discussing a lot about self-care. And it's a good time to stop and reflect to see how it's going. We've discussed self-care in all 6 areas in our life. And like we discussed, you have to be able to take care of yourself in all areas, because if one of them is not working out, then you have like a flat tire. Maybe not the whole tire is flat, but part of the tire is flat, and you'll be thumping around. It's not going to be smooth. You're going to feel something is missing, not knowing what it is. And even if you do practice self-care in one area, if the other area is neglected, you'll feel it. So it's important to become aware of the 6 areas and to see, even if it's something small, you stop and think, what can I do in that area to enhance the way I feel? What's something small that I can do that's going to make me feel better in this area? You don't have to conquer the whole thing at once, just small steps. And that's really the important part, stopping and becoming aware and thinking what's something that would help me. So the 6 areas are physical, psychological or mental, emotional, spiritual, and professional. Wherever you are, look around in all these areas. A good idea is to write them down. Sit for a few minutes with each of them, or different days. Sit down and think to yourself, where am I with my spirituality? How do I feel? What are my thoughts? What are my ideas? And see what comes up. Let it come up, whatever comes up. You might say, this is something I don't even understand. Spirituality doesn't talk to me. Disconnected. Okay, write it down. And eventually ask yourself, what's something that would talk to you? What's something that you would want? Or maybe you remember something from years ago that you tried, it didn't work. Just becoming aware of it. Now, first of all, thank you very much, whoever sent me the feedback. Many of you have taken small steps and are learning a lot about self-care. However, there are those who are struggling, and we'll discuss tonight a little bit why it's so hard for many to stop and take those small steps. So before discussing, some people have perfection tendencies. Things need to work out. Things need to be the same. But before we go there, just to stop for a moment and think, what have I learned past few weeks? Is it something that I just wrote it down and it's logical, makes a lot of sense, and I would love to do it? Or these are ideas that you've actually tried, whatever it is, maybe trying to go to sleep a little bit earlier, eating healthy, any small difference. So just ask yourself, have I done anything small? So I could share small things that when I started on this journey, one of the things is that I used to go to sleep with my cell phone. And my cell phone used to be right next to me, my alarm clock and my cell phone, there it is. Until I realized that it's not healthy for many reasons. So I leave it outside of my room. Well, it might not be easy for a lot of people. People are used to it. And I could tell you sometimes it's hard, but I'm aware of it and I think I need it. And Baruch Hashem, it's getting easier. So just to stop and see what are small things. Another idea is drinking more water. I was aware that I used to drink maybe a cup or two a day, and that's not enough. So, in the morning or at night, find more time. And again, these are changes. Changes are hard. You're used to your routine. You're used to your things you're doing for many years. To come up with something, you become aware, I should eat healthier. I should drink more. What can I do about it? So you have to remember to put it in your routine. And you find after 2 or 3 days, you go back to your regular routine. And then your mind might say, it's not working. You could try again, but how long is it going to last? Oops, become aware of that thought and say, I hear you, but I'll try again. I'll try to continue. When I remember, I'll continue. And that's it. Be nice to yourself with some compassion. So here are some questions to see if you're struggling with self-care. So, am I getting enough sleep? Do I feel refreshed in the morning? Am I eating a balanced diet, staying dehydrated? Am I eating fruits and vegetables? Am I exercising regularly? Am I getting enough physical activity for my health and well-being? Just become aware of your answers, yes or no. That's it. It's a yes or no. Am I taking breaks and time for relaxation? Do I allow myself to disconnect from work and technology? Am I socializing, spending time with loved ones? Do I feel connected to others? Am I setting realistic expectations for myself? Do I beat myself up when I don't achieve perfection? Am I taking care of my physical health, such as seeing a doctor, a dentist, regular checkups? Do I feel like I'm always on the go, never have time for myself? Do I feel guilty or selfish for taking time for myself? Do I know how to ask for help when I need it? So if you answered no or sometimes, so you might want to stop and see where you answered no or sometimes, see what you can do to enhance, to take that next step, to take a small step and give yourself what you need. Now, for perfectionists, it could be a challenge. Now, it doesn't mean somebody who's diagnosed with perfection, and there is such a diagnosis. Sometimes people are really stuck because they can't get things started, and they can't do certain things because they can't do it perfectly, or when they do it, it takes them hours and hours, and it takes over their whole life. And for such a person, coming here Wednesday night is beautiful, but you should find yourself a professional who you can meet weekly and they can help you take the steps to oil a little bit. Things should be a little bit easier for you because they could help you. And that's self-care. Find the care, the help that you need. But many of us, and myself included, it's hard to get out of our comfort zone. Why? Because we might not be able to do it perfectly. And we want to do things perfectly. If I can't do the whole thing, I probably won't do it. So we have tendencies of being perfect. So for such people, these thoughts can come into our head when we want to practice self-care. We might think that self-care is self-indulgence. Maybe I don't deserve it, or maybe I don't need it. You might think it's a distraction from more important goals. You have a list to do, and self-care is not on your list. You're too busy. So I should stop and do self-care. I really don't have time. Or you might feel guilty giving yourself self-care, selfish, taking time for myself. And deep down, there might be a thought of, I don't deserve. Or if I have to practice self-care, does that mean that I'm not capable? My neighbors manage. My siblings manage. I don't see them doing self-care. So if I have to do self-care, what does that mean? Nah, I don't need it. Okay, just become aware, first of all, of who controls your life. Looking around to see what everybody else does, so that's what you can do for yourself, even though you need it. But deep down, all these ideas are really the self-worth. How do you feel about yourself? If I take off, if I come to work an hour late once a month, so people are really scared to do these things. If I wake up a little bit later, if you could, what are people going to say? Or what are you going to say about yourself? Does that mean I'm not capable and I'm struggling with my mental health? Just become aware of those thoughts. And it really boils down to how we feel and think about ourselves. So you might think self-care, I don't need it. Or maybe I didn't see it at home. My mother, she always managed. My father, wow, they were strong. And if they could do it, I could do it. I never saw them stop taking care of themselves. So it could be they didn't. It could be they did, you don't know about it. It could be they didn't. And yes, many people are strong, and we'll talk about it later. And they continue and saying they don't need it and continue. Sometimes it could be like Mesiras Nefesh, martyrism, to continue no matter what. And we did see it by many. And then we think we have to do the same. So we can't stop. But what happens is, we discussed it, it affects our health. And if we need it, we have to be able to tell ourselves, I'm okay with who I am. And maybe my neighbor doesn't need it, but I do. And I'm still okay. That doesn't mean any of these thoughts. That doesn't mean that I'm not capable. And maybe I'll be able to do more if I take some self-care. But here are some ideas that, just to remind ourselves why it's so important. If somebody who lacks being able to take care of themselves, they can develop chronic fatigue and low energy levels. And they're not aware. Why? Difficulty sleeping, becoming irritated, with mood swings. And also, if you're not aware that you need to take care of yourself, to be there for others, to be there for yourself. Feeling overwhelmed and anxious, we discussed high functioning anxiety. That means you're not diagnosed with anxiety. You're managing. You're doing what you need to do. That's high functioning anxiety. You're functioning, but there's anxiety. You have to do it. You have to continue. You can't stop. You can't sit down and for 5 minutes relax. Eventually, you could develop a lack of motivation and enthusiasm in whatever you're doing, and then you don't know why. It's hard to concentrate and focus. You might have problems with digestive systems, constipation, upset stomach, and even skin problems, dryness. These physical things come out if you don't take care of your needs, physical needs, emotional needs, or in any area in your life that you feel you need to take some time to take care of yourself. So it's important to become aware of what happens if I don't do it. Let me continue. I managed to pass many years. I've never heard about this idea, and I'm good. So to be able to take a moment, stop and breathe and make conscious decision that I'm going to take a few minutes a day to relax. Now, how would one know if they have a hard time maybe with some tendencies of perfectionism? So here is a list to ask yourself, and let's see what you'll answer. Do I feel like I always need to be perfect in everything I do? Do I spend a lot of time on tasks or projects because I want them to be perfect? Do I find it difficult to delegate tasks, work with others because I don't trust them to do things right? I have to do everything, I have to look over everything they do. I'm on top of the game, which sounds amazing, but it's hard for you to delegate. Do I feel like my self-worth is tied to my accomplishments or success? If I accomplish and succeed, then I am worth. But if not, so it's dependent on my accomplishments and success. Do I feel guilty or ashamed when I make a mistake or I don't achieve my goal? I go to sleep at night, I did not finish, I did not achieve my goal. How do you feel? What are those voices, those thoughts? You tell yourself. When you make a mistake, what's the reaction? Or when was the last time you made a mistake? Perfectionists don't make mistakes. They won't do it if they can't, but they can't make mistakes. Do I have a trouble starting or finishing tasks because I'm afraid of not doing it perfectly? Do I avoid trying new things because I'm afraid of failure, not doing them perfectly? Do I constantly compare myself to others? I feel like I'm not measuring up. Looking around, the people that you know, your friends, your neighbors, family, looking around to see what's everybody doing? Am I doing what they're doing? Hard to be different, or am I doing as much as they're doing? Maybe no, they're doing much more. Something wrong with me. Do I feel like my perfectionism is causing me stress, anxiety, or any other uncomfortable emotions? And the last one is have others expressed concern about my perfectionism or the amount of pressure I put on myself? Do you hear people around you say you're putting too much pressure on yourself? And you might say, no, it's not true. But just become aware. It might be hard to admit that we have those tendencies, perfectionists, and we want to continue doing what we're doing. But if you answered yes to these questions, it's hard for you. So become aware of where they are, become aware of what area, and maybe you need some self-care in that place. Maybe it's okay to make a mistake. It's okay to start something and not finish today. It could take a few days or a few more days. Nothing's going to happen. So you might need that self-care. But there's another idea, which is not so much perfectionism. It has some overlapping tendencies, but like I mentioned before, to be a martyr. So what's the difference? Perfectionism is about striving to be a perfect self. That's perfectionism. Everything has to be perfect. While being a martyr is really, like we said, mesirus nefesh. It's sacrificing our own needs for the sake of others, for your family, for your neighbors, for chesed, at work. But it's not that they're taking advantage of you. You have a mission and you want to do it, and you're going to do whatever you could do for others and not look of what you need. So you put your needs on the side, you neglect your own needs for others, to help others and to be there for others, which in the world looks amazing. And a person, while they're doing it, also think they're doing the right thing. Because isn't that why we're here? Isn't that what Hashem wants from us? To look at ourselves? We're not here for ourselves. We're here to help and to do whatever we can for others, even though I don't get the sleep I need. And I'm not taking care of my self-care, whatever I need in whichever area. So the thoughts could be, I don't need it. I'm fine. You might tell yourself, I'm good. Or this is my mission. And they actually do feel very strong. They won't let themselves feel that something is missing, because it doesn't, how could that work? It has to continue. And you might walk around thinking, I'm not lacking anything. Menachem, you've discussed self-care in the past, which is amazing. I love to hear about it because now I could teach it to others. But it's not for me because I'm good. Nothing is missing. I only sleep 4.5 hours a night, but I'm okay. I don't get to eat, maybe one meal a day, but I'm okay. I'm okay. And I'm there for others. So that's real mesirus nefesh. So let's talk about that for a minute. So what's the problem? So like you mentioned, again, there could be physical, outbreaks of whatever it is, the list that we mentioned before. But the truth is, it doesn't last. It doesn't last. It could last for many years. But then afterwards, you can't continue because you're physically not feeling well. And you're talking about real illness if you don't take care of yourself. So that's number one. Number two, which I mentioned last week, and I'm going to stress it again. Take care of yourself. Maybe you don't need it, but the people around you need you to take care of yourself. Why? Because the only way you'll be able to be there for them, the only way you'll understand what they need. And it really boils down to that vulnerable place of a person saying, I can't, whether it's a child complaining, I can't, it's too hard. And you're used to running around doing everything perfect or pushing yourself because, yes, we could. So it's going to be hard for you to be there for your child. And we ourselves, many of us, can think back how our parents, father, mothers, how they managed. You didn't see them taking care of themselves, and they might be very strong people, and they were able to continue months and years, and they didn't stop and never complained. And that's what I'm trying to be, like them, which is amazing. So why is it wrong? But this is what we discussed. We're lacking that emotional piece, that understanding, that space, that inner child that didn't let themselves experience to be able to grow up. And yes, when it's hard, it's okay. And you could stop, you could take it easy. You can take care of yourself and understand why it's so important. But if it's something that you can't be in touch for yourself, then it's probably going to be you're going to have a hard time being there for your child, for your spouse. And subconsciously, they will pick it up the same way you picked it up from your parents. And that's what you're trying to do. And they might try the same. And for some reason, people are having a hard time. They're trying to figure out why and what's bothering them. And you come back to the list of the self-care that we discussed, and they might say, wait a second, I didn't see it by my parents, so I probably don't need it either. So they're not going to practice self-care. And let me give you a very extreme example. I'll see how many of you can relate, but it's extreme, but many have experienced it. Imagine, or not imagine, if you grew up in a home that for Pesach, in a few weeks, you had to do everything yourself. We didn't buy anything. We made our own schmaltz. We made our own cornstarch, or not cornstarch, that's kidneys, potato starch, your own wine, your own water. Own water, yeah. People go out there and get water from before Pesach, bring it into their house, whatever that is. And now you think to yourself, I need to do the same. If my parents were able to do it, and they had a family full of kids, and they managed, I only have 2 kids. Why shouldn't I be able to? And if I don't, all the insecurities come. Just imagine you don't do it. Now, the truth of this is it's extreme, but many people have, something that they have to think about. But what we really have to ask ourselves, what's something in my life that if I don't do it, I fall apart? If I stop doing that particular thing, I can't, I have to do it. Why? What do you mean why? Because that's what regular people do. That's what normal people do. That's what everybody else is doing. So I have to do it. I should buy supper once in a while. I can't do that. Wake up late, like we mentioned. What's something that if you don't do it, you fall apart? So think about it. Now, I'm not saying anybody should change. You don't have to change yet. Just become aware of it first. And I'm not telling you to stop to make your own potato starch, water, wine, and matzahs and matzah meal and whatever it is. I'm not telling you to stop. Okay? It's just the awareness. Now, people might say, Menachem, if this is what I've been doing the past many years, why would you tell me to, to slack off a little bit in my Yiddishkeit and Avodas Hashem? So if that's something that comes up, please write that down. Just write it down and become aware, because that's step number 1. Just becoming aware of the things that you're doing. And if you don't do it, you will feel like your life is falling apart. That's it for tonight. You can let me know. Send the feedback, emails, coachmenachem@gmail.com. Let me know what comes up. And we'll take it from there. And hopefully next week we'll continue with the idea of which we discussed, but vulnerability. That vulnerable side to be able to say, I can't. I need help. It's not working for me. And we'll see how that's really what's needed in a relationship. If you have a relationship, everybody's doing their own thing and everybody's managing and everybody's good. So it's a nice relationship, but the real relationships are when you can be vulnerable. Say, I need your help here. This is something that I can't continue this way. I would love if things would be different. Wow. But to be able to say that, it can be hard, it can be a challenge, because we feel like we're falling apart. I have to continue. I've been doing this for so many years. So thank you very much for showing up tonight. Thank yourself for showing up, for taking the time off. And I hope you take some time off, even though it's not Wednesday night, just a few minutes a day for relaxation, for journaling, for awareness, whatever it is, you deserve it. And you're good. Yes, you're good the way you are now. And you deserve to take care of yourself. Have a good night and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week. Lots love
Thank
for
you. Thank you.
You're welcome.